Hello, we ghosties. I'm Chance Lee.
And I'm Amanda McAvoy.
And this is That's So Gothic, a movie podcast about girls, guys, and haunted houses. Today, we're digging up the past. College required reading, Oprah's book club, slavery, with Beloved.
Is that you?
What's left?
How long has it been?
18 years. What kind of evil you got in there?
It ain't evil, just sad.
Be have a ghost here, you know.
It can't be easy. A young girl living in a haunted place.
Got a tree on my back and a hink in my house. Nothing in between but the dart I'm holding in my arms.
I'm a grown man. Nothing new left to see or do. We could make a life, girl.
What might your name be?
Beloved.
What you looking for when you come here, beloved?
I look for this place I could be. I think the baby got plans.
A baby?
No, it's grown. It's the age it would have been had it lived. She a charmed child from the beginning.
It's clear why she hold on to you. I just can't see why you holding on to her.
You won't ever leave us, will you?
Don't tell me what to do.
But I'm on your side.
She the one. She the one I need. Here in this place, we are flesh. Flesh that weeps, laughs, dances barefoot in the grass. No running from nothing, because I'd rather know my children will lay at peace in heaven than live in a hell here on earth. So help me, Jesus.
Me and my woman's planning on starting a new life. Nobody's gonna own us no more. Nobody's gonna own my children either.
No matter what happened, God has led you home. You came back to me.
I know it.
Released in 1998, Beloved was directed by Jonathan Demme with a screenplay by Akosua, Busia, Richard LaGravenese, and Adam Brooks, based on the novel by Nobel Prize winner Toni Morrison. The film stars Oprah Winfrey as Setha, an escaped slave, Kimberly Elise as her daughter Denver, Thandiwe Newton as Setha's reincarnated daughter and maybe something more, Beloved, and Danny Glover as Paul D., another escaped slave who is in love with Setha. And this is the story of a family recovering from the inescapable horrors of slavery. So despite this pedigree, this movie was a box office bomb. It made only $22 million against an $80 million budget.
Wow.
The 3-hour runtime is probably part of the reason for that, and the very heavy, dark subject material that was not typically tackled in this way, especially in 1998. But also in an interview with a media platform called Real Black, which is a Black-run media company, they interviewed Jonathan Demme, the director. And he said that the movie only ran in theaters for 4 weeks, which really impacted its ability to make any sort of money. And it was taken out of theaters by Disney, who owned Buena Vista, who was the producing company or what distributor for this film, to make room for Adam Sandler's The Water Boy.
No.
So, and then it never came back. Then because this was before streaming, and so they had allegedly told him they would bring it back around Oscar season to try to build up some Oscar buzz for it. But it never came back to theaters.
Oh, no.
And then Oprah is also on the record for saying that she got very depressed because of the poor success of this movie. And also because of the movie that opened at #1 the same week, which was Bride of Chucky.
Okay. Okay. I'm fine. Oh, wow.
I was like, well, what a time to be alive when you're going to the theater and you have to choose between Bride of Chucky or Beloved. And all you're doing is waiting for the water boy. Like all you're doing. Like this is a bad time for Beloved in theater.
Yeah, that's a rough go at it. Ooh.
Rough go. And the movie has like virtually been forgotten.
Yeah.
We live in a community with a very large network of libraries, and there are literally only 2 copies of this DVD
Yep.
in the system,
Yeah.
and we have them both. So the DVD kind of sucks. There's no special features.
Yeah.
It's very bare bones, which is unfortunate. So this is kind of a product that's lost to time. I think was ahead of its time for sure. Both the book and the subject matter for the film.
Yeah.
Who knows if it would have been successful later. But what I didn't realize and what I learned from an article in Vanity Fair is that this is the only film of one of Toni Morrison's books.
Really? I guess that kind of makes sense.
Like theatrical. I don't know if there's been any
Yeah.
TV movies, but the only theatrical adaptation.
Interesting. Huh. I mean, I'm assuming Beloved is, widely regarded as her most popular. It's the one that won her the Nobel Peace Prize, right? Am I correct?
I think the Nobel Prize is like for an author's body of work.
Oh, okay.
It's different than the Pulitzer, which is for a work, whereas the Nobel Prize is for the person. I really only know this one and The Bluest Eye, which are both like high school, college required reading books.
Yes. Oh, the Song of Solomon. I think I read that.
Oh, okay.
Sula, I feel like I thought that had an adaptation, but maybe I'm incorrect. Well, I mean, I have to be incorrect, but that's so funny. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, this article was written when Toni Morrison died a couple years ago.
Oh,
so
okay.
unless it's been recent, it was at the time. And so the book came out in 1987 and Oprah read it immediately and wanted to purchase the rights right away. Toni Morrison had an unlisted phone number. So Oprah Winfrey called the fire department in the town in which Toni Morrison lived and said, call Toni and tell her Oprah called. And they did.
Oh my God.
So Toni Morrison called Oprah and they worked out a deal. And Oprah had the rights to this book.
What a boss move. That is so cool.
I know.
Could you imagine being the fireman getting that call? Like, you literally, like, your whole life, you're just like, I'm a fireman. I have, fighting fires. I'm responding to emergencies. That's my life. And then you get a phone call that's literally Oprah.
From Oprah. I know.
Oprah.
If there was ever a doubt that Oprah's been a badass for like 50 years, like this is, this is great.
So good.
And so, she bought these rights and then it took a very long time to bring it to the screen, which we'll get into a bit later. During my research, I would read occasionally that like Toni Morrison wasn't happy with the movie, but I could never find an actual source for this.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
So I asked ChatGPT what Toni Morrison thought of Beloved. And ChatGPT also did not cite their sources, but said that she had mixed feelings about the movie adaptation. And the movie was well made and beautifully shot, but did not fully capture the complexity and depth of the novel, especially regarding the character of Beloved.
I could see that. Now, I don't know if I've ever read this book. When I was watching the movie, I felt like I knew the story. So maybe I did in college, because like you said, it is typically college required reading, and I was an English major. So maybe I did, and I just like mostly forget it. But from what I could see, because I was also looking up sort of the book summary after the movie, it seems like it adapted it pretty beat by beat.
That's what I thought. I remember the book very little. I read it, attempted to read it in high school, and then read it again in college. It's a really, for me at that time, very, very difficult book to understand. Just the way it's written, it bounces forward and back in time, and is very, whatever the positive version of convoluted is, because like I really liked this book, but it's very complex, I guess, and intertwined. And so for better or for worse, I think they've done a good job of faithfully adapting it.
Yeah, because this movie, I actually was afraid. I almost like was tempted to ask you if we could do it later, if I could read the book first, but I'm actually kind of happy that I watched this movie before delving into the book, because I think it is going to, because like you said, I could tell just by watching the movie, okay, if this was on page, I would be so confused. So I think it's actually, I mean, again, this is my opinion as someone who hasn't read the book or hasn't read it in a long time. So I could be completely wrong, but it seems like it's probably a good compendium to the book.
I agree. I don't understand how anyone can read this book,
Yeah.
especially under the age of like 40, without
Right, yeah.
Cliff's notes, or
Yeah.
like being in a college class or having
Right.
watched the movie. So the movie at least spells out what's going on, because sometimes the
Yeah.
book is intentionally opaque. And I remember in high school, a friend of mine who had access to a printer printed out the entire SparkNotes guide for Beloved, and we just took our test with
Yeah.
that, because we ended up being very lucky and had a substitute teacher that day who like did not notice / care that we just pulled out this giant printout and like had it on our desks like as we took the test.
That's so great.
So, and then revisiting it in college, I was much more serious. I went to college later, and I was like, oh, I'm going to, get to the bottom of this. And I really liked it. But the discussion helped. I would not have understood what was going on if we didn't have a class discussion about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So despite all that, it's actually quite favorably reviewed, both critically and the 7 people that saw it. It has a 72% critical tomato and a 71% audience tomato. And Ebert gave it 3.5 stars. And it's directed, the director I think is a weird choice. So it's directed by Jonathan Demme, who did Silence of the Lambs, which is, I've been really engaged. Film bros really like him. Film people really like him. I haven't really engaged with a lot of his work. I think this is the only movie of his I've seen that isn't Silence of the Lambs.
Oh, I was going to say, yeah. Do you know what else he's done? Or
he did Philadelphia with Tom Hanks, which I never saw.
I never saw
which was
that.
his like apology to the gay community for directing Silence of the Lambs. Like he felt bad for offending, especially trans people, with that movie that he did Philadelphia.
Wow.
So it's hard to the right place.
Yeah.
This movie has some weird, it's got some weird stuff to it. The way it does the whole ghost aspect, and like,
absolutely.
While I appreciate for the most part practical effects,
yes,
I wanted some, I needed some computer touch-ups in this one. Yeah. It feels like a high school production sometimes.
Yeah.
So that's all I have to say about that. But so the writers is what to me is really interesting on the behind the scenes. So we have 3 credited screenwriters here. We have Akosua Busia, who is from, I believe, from Ghana, and she's top billed. And then we have Richard LaGravenese and Adam Brooks. I've never heard of Adam Brooks before. He wrote Practical Magic, another adaptation. He wrote the bad Bridget Jones movie, the second one.
Yep.
And he seems to be like the second credited writer for another Black-led film called Napoli Ever After.
Oh my goodness.
This is the whitest white guy you've ever seen. And then there's this movie that I don't know what it's about, but the entire cast and crew seems to be Black except for him. And he's the co-writer. I don't understand.
He got his way in there.
That. And then Richard LaGravenese was very popular at the time because he wrote The Horse Whisperer and Bridges of Madison County.
Oh.
Big romances.
Yeah.
He also wrote and directed Beautiful Creatures, which will be coming up on our podcast eventually.
Incredible.
So we'll be talking about him again. But the real interest is in this other screenwriter, Miss Busia. And so I found an article in Entertainment Weekly from October 1998 called Brawl Over Beloved. And I love when Entertainment Weekly actually did journalism. And this is like a 4-page article about the grappling behind the scenes over the screenwriting credits for this.
Wow.
And so they describe her as, quote, a sometimes actress and screenwriter who is also Ghanaian royalty.
Oh.
They say she is intelligent and slightly eccentric in a new age way. Her answer machine message reminds callers to, quote, remember, faith is not a jump in the dark. It is a walk in the light.
Beautiful.
And then they write, until now, she's probably been best known as the wife of director John Singleton. They were married for a year and had a kid together. And she co-starred with Oprah in The Color Purple.
Oh, interesting. Was she actually royalty, or was that hyperbolic? Yeah, no idea.
The way they're painting her, you have no idea.
Yeah,
kind of what to believe here. So she says that she was given a copy of Beloved pre-publication by her sister, who's an English professor at Rutgers, and she's the one who gave it to Oprah. And Oprah bought the film rights in that story we talked about. So she wrote a treatment for a script that was declined. So later on, like 4 years later, she sent her another screenplay under the pseudonym Mia Oshwiges, which is an anagram for Guess Who I Am.
That's so good.
So Oprah then accepted it under this pseudonym. And then surprise, it was her. And so then flash forward when the Writers Guild of America issued the credit to the two white guys. So she just assumed that they ended up not using her material, which happens all the time.
Yeah.
In screenwriting in Hollywood. But then when she got a copy of the script and she believed it was her work. And so she says that, quote, I find it sadly ironic that we have a story such as Beloved, where a Black woman fights for freedom from white oppressors. And then here I am, a Black female writer from Africa, writing the script and being left in a position to battle against Disney, who recommends two white male writers who were paid literally millions of dollars more than I was.
Wow.
So the authors themselves say they did not get paid millions of dollars. They don't say exactly what they got paid. And then this article, which is very long, goes into like the similarities and stuff about the crediting process. Eventually, she did get top billing.
Good.
And then the two men are under her. But yeah, what do you think about that?
if she is not actually royalty, she is a queen. That is insane. I mean, she absolutely has a point. It is so depressing how often it happens where Black women's work is completely underappreciated. Obviously, we can't know all of the mechanics of what happened, but just knowing Hollywood and Disney's reputation, I absolutely believe I would take her side in a heartbeat. That is
right. And because Oprah can only do so much from her position,
Right.
you know, it's out of her hands at this point. Sure, she's a producer, but that doesn't mean a lot, really.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Seriously. Yeah. Wow. That is incredibly interesting. I really wish we got more like petty beside, behind the scenes movie. Like, oh my God, if Entertainment Weekly wrote a 4-page, article on Don't Worry, Darling. Oh my God. Like we're missing that. We're missing that so much.
All we have is Demme now, and it's just like, I don't care.
Yeah, I don't trust you. I don't know you.
No, I miss this. The way these writers are so good and pick out the weirdest tidbits and most bizarre quotes. Like it's so my jam. I love it.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good.
But I still think it's nuts that this movie, which again, very dark, I can understand why the subject matter really speaks to Oprah and to many people. But like this came out in 1998. This was the height of like Oprah's success.
Yeah.
Like she was like apex mountain at this point, I feel like in her career.
Right.
So that's a little wild. Did you ever watch Oprah or engage with Oprah in any way?
Not a ton. I was, pretty young at like, peak Oprah. Yeah, I don't have a whole lot of experience with her. Sometimes I would catch it, if I was homesick from school or something. But yeah, not really. What about you?
Yeah, my mom was an Oprah watcher, but
Mm.
for some unknown reason, when I was like a junior and senior in high school, I was hardcore into Oprah's book club. I read quite a few
That's so
books
funny.
with the big O sticker on it, and
Yeah,
yeah, loved those books. I
that's so funny.
For a librarian and someone who went to school for English, I didn't read for a long time,
Yeah.
especially as a kid and like an adolescent.
Hmm.
And so, but something about these Oprah's book club books, like they were just complicated enough, but still
Mm.
accessible that like I could read them and be challenged and
Yeah.
confused, but not enough to be bored or put off by them. They really hit a good sweet spot for me.
Yeah. I think too, like I kind of missed a little bit of like the hype surrounding the Oprah book clubs. Like I wasn't really, I mean, I didn't start seriously reading until I was in like my mid 20s. Um, so I think now like I'm almost desensitized to it, but I remember like even though I didn't partake in it, when a book got the Oprah book club like sticker, it was huge. I mean, I think nowadays like you have so many of like the Reese book club and Oprah and everyone
And
has
Jenna
one now.
Bush, don't forget Jenna Bush, my favorite
Oh,
celebrity book club.
I had no idea.
Yeah, so big
Wow.
big fan of reading with Jenna. I've only read two of them, but it's two more than I've read of Reese Witherspoon. So
So funny. Yeah, they were like a huge deal when that would happen. Like if Oprah put her sticker on a book, it was major.
Oprah like saved publishing. Like Oprah
Yeah.
saved literacy. Like Oprah saved reading. Like
Yes.
that's
That
the
is
only
so
reason people
true.
read in the
Yeah.
90s was because of Oprah. Yeah.
Yeah. Does she still like have her book club, like actively chooses books for it?
I don't know if she does like one a year or like
Oh,
when
okay.
she feels like it.
Yeah.
It's not because I think it used to be monthly or
I
bi-monthly.
think it was monthly. Yeah.
And then she retired that in like the around 2010, I think.
Mm.
But yeah, there's still a few that pop up here and there.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I
So
know
I
like
don't know if
Reese
it's annually or not.
Witherspoon is like constantly. I feel like, every time I check in a new batch of books, something has Reese's name on it. Or maybe I'm just like hyper fixated on
No,
it.
there's
But
so many of hers.
yeah,
And like,
yeah.
what does she do? What's the club? Because like Oprah, the thing with Oprah's book club is she would go to the author's house
Mm.
and then
Oh
like,
yeah.
and then her crew would restage the author's house. I was hearing stories about authors later talking about
Yeah.
how Oprah's crew would come in with like a different couch and like just totally redo their whole living room.
That's so funny.
But yeah, they would come in, they would talk to the author, they would
Right.
have like audience chats, like it was a book club.
Yeah.
What the fuck
Right.
does Reese Witherspoon do?
Yeah. She just reads the book and is like, this is good.
And what did she wear the crawdads sing? Nobody cares
Right.
about that.
Yeah. Exactly. Sorry.
Anyway.
I love Reese Witherspoon. I feel so bad, but like your book club is shit compared to Oprah.
I like her. I think she's a total asshole, but I
Oh,
bet it. So I like when she plays an asshole, like in Big Little
yeah.
Lies or whatever. So
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
sure she can take it. If
Yeah. Oh yeah.
she's listening to this.
She's got thick Southern skin.
She does. So also in the movie we have Thandiwe Newton
Mhm.
as Beloved, which is just like the hardest role in the
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah.
I'm
It's
just really speechless about her because it's like the character is written as something unlike anything else, and just playing that is so difficult, I feel like. And this is
yes.
where again I almost want like I wish it had been made 10 years later where I don't know what they could have
Mm.
done, but something to make her more abhuman. Or there was that phrase we talked, I think it
Yeah.
was abhuman, the phrase we talked about months ago.
Yeah.
And because sometimes, like a no fault of her own, she's doing a phenomenal job. But
Yeah, she
sometimes
is.
it's hard just to not see her acting, like,
Yeah.
I don't know,
Yeah.
stuff
Well,
roll.
because like it's like you said, like, yeah, I wish there had just been something, that wasn't up to her to get the point across, because you know, you really have to rely on like the way she speaks, which can be hard. I don't know how to like, it's a little hard to watch. It definitely took me out of the movie a little bit, like her speaking, but again, like I really think was doing the best she could with it. And it's one of those characters where I think, you know, it's not easy to read about. That's not what I'm trying to say, but it's something that can be written about, but harder to translate as just a person. So
yeah, I don't know if this was a book that they ever talked about being like unfilmable, like some books do, but especially with that character, it's just, I don't know how they pull it off. And I think the way he just films her like any other character. And I feel like maybe if there had been, I don't know, odd angles or different lighting or something that made her seem otherworldly, it would have been more more successful.
Yeah, like I'm sure we'll get into it in the plot summary and everything, but like she definitely is a very unsettling character, but I think it could have been done better, to absolutely no fault of hers, because she's an incredible actress.
Pulling it out. She has to do so much. And then we have Danny Glover, who is not an actor that like I'm very familiar with. He was big in like Lethal Weapon. And like I know I'm going to say this out loud and it'll be taken out of context someday when I'm famous, but like as a child growing up in Mississippi and not understanding the difference between certain Black people, I thought he was Winston in Ghostbusters for the longest time.
To be fair, I mean, I do think it's not just race. I think they look alike and they have similar like
it's also
attitudes.
Not my fault that like that Hollywood only had 2 Black men of that, like age and stature. Like there were only the 2 of them.
Absolutely.
I deny all blame for that. But I have since seen Predator 2, which is awful, but he's in that. I was
gonna say, I thought he was in Predator. Yeah.
And he has this very voluptuous behind that we get to see in a rear nudity portion of the film.
Yeah, I was
like, whoop, he's thick. Two C's.
God, like literally double cheeked up.
Oh, I'm like, now I see why Oprah is into him. Yes.
I get it, girl.
Yes. They have a few very sweaty love scenes throughout the movie.
Yeah.
So let's get into the plot summary. So we open in Ohio, 1865. And we see a gravestone. It just says beloved on it. And we're told we're at the house at 124 Bluestone Road. And like the first thing we see is a dog get thrown against the wall and its eye pops out.
Oh, it's so bad. I had to look away.
I had to rewind because I was like, is that what's really happening? Like, what is that? I could not believe it. So shit's flying all over this house. And there's 2 boys, they run away. And then we're told it's 1873. Conveniently for us math deprived people, it says 8 years later.
Nice.
Thank you. So I just imagine a producer being like, can we say how many years later it is?
Yeah.
Like, we don't want people having to count this early in the film.
Those are big numbers.
Seeing the dog with its eye popped out, fine, but we don't want people to have to count to 8.
No.
So the poor dog is limping around and has like a foggy eye.
Yeah.
And Oprah's at this pump washing her legs. We'll later learn that she's playing the woman Setha, who's the lead of the movie. And Danny Glover shows up. He plays Paul D. They haven't seen each other in 18 years. And he's shown up at this house, which was originally owned by an older woman named Baby Suggs.
Which was very confusing for me, that her name was Baby and she was an older woman.
Yes, I only knew that because I'd read the book. Like I remember the character names and the relationships from the book. Except I didn't remember who she was. And we don't find out until later. If we knew at this point, it wasn't clear to me. But so Setha's children are by Hallie, who was a fellow slave who she married. And baby Suggs is Hallie's mother, and he worked hard to buy her freedom.
Yeah.
So when Paul D walks into this house, this red light shines on him.
Yeah.
It's just a light. It's just a red light bulb.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, ambient.
And that's a representation of the evil in the house. And so Setha says that it's not evil, it's just sad. And we get this glimpse of some bodies in a mud and a woman behind a door, but we don't know what that is until much, much later. So she invites him over for dinner. He will, at least 3 times during the scene, he takes a drink and goes, ah.
Thirsty.
It's such a choice. Ah. He does it multiple times. So Setha introduces her to her daughter, Denver, who's played by Kimberly Elise, who is a woman that looks so familiar, even though I have no idea what I know her from. I went through her whole filmography. No idea where the hell I have ever seen her. But she's like not happy that this man is in the house. Yeah. They are both slaves who have run away from a plantation called Sweet Home. And she says, how come everybody who run away from Sweet Home can't stop talking about it? Which is really funny. So we're getting a lot of character development here, including a flashback to this like brutal rape and beating of Setha when she was on the farm. So the like slave driver's name, they just called him school teacher. Yeah. There seemed to be some owners who were like but beyond the fact that they owned slaves and let this happen, like directly they were nice people. Like they gave Setha earrings and they like let them get quote unquote married on the plant. They treat them like dolls as opposed to like animals. Yeah. It's a good way to school teacher. Yeah, school teacher and his sons. One of them is played by Wes Bentley. Did you recognize him?
No. Who's Wes Bentley?
He was did you ever see American Beauty?
Yes.
He's the boy in that, and he's like in a Hunger Game.
Oh my God. Yes. He's one of the there's like 6 actors who look like this.
Yes. He has very like angry eyes.
Yes. He
has like intense eyebrows.
Yeah. He was in a Hunger Game. That's funny. Oh my God. I did not recognize him.
Oh, it took me totally out of the scene. I was like, that's Wes Bentley. This must have been one of his first roles because American Beauty wasn't until the next year. But so, we get that flashback and we learn she's got this terribly scarred back from being beaten. And so Paul D, though, is very kind to her and he caresses her. He kisses the scarred back, but that angers this poltergeist that's in the house, which like fucks up the kitchen. And so Paul D he wants to seek work. He helps Setha out around the house. He's always singing and Denver hates that he's singing. And then we get this shot of a woman in an all black funeral dress, wheezing, kind of like I am right now, staggering out of a river. And like she's covered in beetles. They're on her face and her eyelashes. And this is Thandiwe Newton. So we'll learn that this is this character of Beloved. Yeah. But nobody in the house sees this. We only see this as the audience. So when the family goes to the fair to have fun, and then they come back and they find this woman outside, and Setha has to run off and pee like nobody's business.
Violently pee.
So much pee.
Go piss, girl.
I remember that being a big conversation point when we talked about this book in college. And so it's, according to my American Lit professor, symbolic of her water breaking.
Oh, interesting.
Yes, since we'll learn that this is the reincarnation of her dead daughter. Yeah. So she tells them her name is Beloved. She's very wheezy and she spells it out. A-L. And she spells out her name. And she talks like that for, again, this is a 3-hour movie, for an hour before. And before time normalizes, but never quite.
Yes, and it's creepy. Like it almost sounds like they imposed a voice over Thandiwe. Like it sounds like Reagan in The Exorcist.
Oh yeah, and it makes me
Yeah.
think of Lupita Nyong'o and Us. Like, I wonder if she
Yeah.
watched this to like study that kind of raspy
Yes.
horse voice.
Yeah.
Um, Paul D is like suspicious of this girl
Mm,
because she doesn't have walking feet. You know,
yeah.
she looks, you know, young and fresh and
Right.
unscarred. And she like all she wants to eat is carbs, which like
Mhm.
same.
Yeah.
She soils the bed.
Yeah.
There's a really funny scene where she tries to just eat a live baby chick. She puts it in her mouth.
Yep.
I'm like, oh no. I'm like, Tandaway's gonna get salmonella from that. She
Oh
should
my
not put
God.
that chick in her mouth.
Yeah.
So I hope she was okay. And then like she says to Setha, I help you make bread. And so there she gets her to like share stories about her family and like
Yeah.
her mother that she shares with them.
Right.
And so Paul D tries to get some information out of her.
Mhm.
But Beloved gets so stressed out that she pukes all over the place.
Ugh.
And eventually like Denver and Beloved are in the attic.
Yep.
And I forget how Denver realizes that Beloved is her older sister who
Yeah.
has died when she was a baby.
Yeah.
And we get this whole flashback to when Setha gave birth to her. And so I don't know why they have her played by another woman. Like
Yeah, because it's not that long ago. Like,
right. It's not like she's a child. Like it's supposed to be like what, 18 years, but even so,
yeah.
it could still be Oprah. Like
Right.
I don't know
Yeah.
why it's a different person.
Yeah.
But so she's played by Lisa Gay Hamilton, who I know from The Practice.
Hmm.
And so she meets this crazy white woman who is
Mhm.
like given heavy Pennsatucky from Orange is the New Black vibes.
Yes. Yeah.
So this woman, I looked up this actress because she looked familiar. But turned out she's not familiar to me at all. But her name is Kessia,
Oh.
Kessia, Kesha Embry.
Hmm.
She is Ethan Embry's sister.
Ethan Embry. That sounds really familiar.
He
Ethan-
was big in the 90s as like a child actor.
Oh,
Or teen
yeah.
actor.
Yes. Oh, from Empire Records.
Yes.
That's so funny.
And she posts like has a few sexy pictures of her brother on her Instagram page, which I found interesting.
Wow. Wow. She's
But
really
she took them too. It's like, here's some photos of my bro, and he's just like shirtless and like looking very hot.
Oh my God. Maybe I'll have
Yeah.
to follow her.
Yes. But she's acting to 11 here. She's in a totally different movie. But she helps Setha give birth and gets her to the river where she's able to go across the river to Ohio, to Cincinnati. No one's ever loved Cincinnati more than these people. And like when I think of Ohio, I don't know what I think about, but I don't realize that it's north of the Mason-Dixon line. Like,
yeah. Right.
I would think they had slaves in Ohio. Like if you just asked me.
It's funny because when I was watching this movie, when I realized it takes place in Ohio, because they established that pretty early in like the first scene, I was like, oh shoot, like we were going to talk about this in terms of Southern Gothic. Like I don't know if I consider Ohio like the South, and it's so bizarre because, well, first of all, I looked up Cincinnati because I did not know where that was on a map. I didn't realize it's right on the border of Kentucky. And I highly consider Kentucky the South. Like, I feel like even though Kentucky is like middle of the country, it's like the most South state. Like,
oh yes.
So I don't know. Ohio is I mean, I think it's been said to death on the internet, but like Ohio is fucking weird, man. Just what is it? Is it the South? Is it the North? Is it Midwest? it's its own. It's like the worst of everything, I think.
I have only been through Ohio once,
Mm-hmm.
and I was driving from Mississippi to New England, and
Mm.
both of the car accidents I narrowly avoided were in Ohio. So
Of
I don't
course.
have a high opinion of Ohio drivers from that,
Yeah.
I don't know, 6 to 8 hours I spent in their state.
Sorry,
But it's
Ohio, but
better than Kentucky. When I cross the border into Kentucky, I love stopping at the like state rest area
yeah,
because they're always very clean and like the people are nice.
right.
You at the Kentucky rest area from I was going from Nashville. You there there's a big rock and it has a plaque on it that says like it's got a list of all the different years and then numbers of how many people that year died in automotive fatalities. And
Oh
I'm
my
just like,
God.
wow, welcome to Kentucky. You're gonna die on the road.
Oh my
Thanks.
God. Why would they advertise that?
It's the least welcome I've ever felt. Which is saying a lot because I've been to these welcome centers in Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi, Louisiana, Arkansas, Texas, and this is the least welcome
Oh my
I have
God.
ever felt.
Yeah.
So, but
right,
then
so-
Kentucky, fine. I guess
Yeah.
people see that number and they drive carefully. And then they
And
get
then
to Ohio and they're like, now we're going to run you off the road.
because no one will count us if we die here.
We don't count them. We don't count you. You won't even be a statistic. So
horrifying.
yeah. So fuck Ohio. It was nice in the 1800s, not anymore. So, so back at Beloved's time.
Yeah.
Setha takes the girls to like pay tribute to baby Suggs.
Mhm.
She has these earrings that were like made of crystal. Beloved wants to see the diamonds. I don't know if that's now or later, but it does come up where she got them. They were given to her by the plantation owner's wife. But anyway, back at the house, this is when Paul D's in this little tin tub in the kitchen, like very small, you know.
Yeah.
He stands up and it's like, damn, son, like
boom,
like Beloved 3D win, you know, like man, that ass. So they have their they're like, you hear them moaning and giggling off screen and Beloved hears this and runs off and we get this really bizarre scene where she and Denver watch these two turtles mating.
It's a long scene too.
Are the turtles real or are they puppets? Like, is someone moving them? Like, they look like puppets. Like they
do kind of look like puppets. But I've also seen turtles doing that and they kind of look like puppets because they're just like so juddy is the only word I can think of. Like
they were just so coordinated and choreographed. And like, how long did they, one, these turtles are puppets, or two, how many hours of footage do they have of these turtles before they got like the cut that they wanted for this movie?
Oh, I'm just imagining some poor like talent scout having to go out to this creek and just wait for like hours.
And call PETA to like make sure they're not hurting the turtles.
Right. They're like, well, I guess they wouldn't have a smartphone, but they're like searching like turtle aphrodisiacs, like sprinkling it into the water.
Yeah, leaving, I don't know what, lavender or something. I don't know what you serve them.
Crushed up Viagra in the water.
Yes. Oh, that was huge in the 90s. People love Viagra.
That's true.
But yeah, that goes on for a while. And so we noticed that like Beloved has a scar on her throat. This is when I first noticed it. The camera really focuses on it. And then we get to like where Paul D's sleeping a lot. Something weird is happening to him. And then Beloved comes to him in the shed and she says, I want you to touch me on the inside part and call my name. She keeps saying, touch me on the inside part.
Yep.
And so she kind of like, I mean, he does it, but like under duress, I guess.
Yeah.
And then this red light starts emanating from he's in like some sort of storage shed.
Yeah.
And Denver sees the red light
Right.
And then Paul D immediately feels guilty for this.
Yeah.
And he's rehearsing how to tell Setha what he did, but he can't bring himself to do it. So he says he wants to have a baby with her.
Yeah. And she just cracks up.
I know, because she's like, I'm too old for this.
Yeah.
There's a pretty scene where it snows though, and then he's just, he's happy, but he's working with these other men at like a stockyard type place, maybe a slaughterhouse or some pigs. And one of the men says to him, well, just because you can't see the chains doesn't mean they're not there. And as long as the world is white, that's where we're staying, to kind of talk him out of having a child.
Yeah.
So we don't really understand. I forgot to mention, there's a scene early on where like people are looking at Setha weird, and we don't understand why. She's like a pariah. And I guess I thought it was just because she lived in a haunted house.
Yeah, I did too.
But then we get the flashback in which we learn that the school teacher and Wes Bentley and the other one came to collect her and her kids because she is still their property. So she sees them, and to keep them from taking her children, she takes them into the shed and she murders them. Yeah. And so Beloved is the one who she cut the baby's throat with a saw.
Yeah.
And she's basically about to like strike Denver's head on the wall when they come in and grab her. Yeah. And the two boys are in a puddle of blood on the floor.
Yeah.
And school teacher starts crying, not because of the humanity, but because he's just lost all of this property.
Yeah.
And he calls her an animal, and he spits on the ground. And then it turned out the boys somehow survived. Like they survived to later run away, because they're the ones we saw run away at the beginning, and we never see them again.
I had to search if like they did actually live, or if like that was like a figment of like the grandmother or Setha's imagination or something. As far as I could tell,
I did too.
They did actually live. They did actually grow up to then run away. But yeah,
I think I only realized it because Paul D mentions it later. I think that like you didn't even save them; they still ran away or something.
Yeah, like that. yeah, right. So
because at first I was like, oh, they were ghosts too.
Right. But yeah, no, that is a very, I mean, I think it goes without saying, difficult scene. It's bloody and gruesome, and they really they do not shy away from sort of showing it and leaning into the emotion. It's a hard watch.
I think that's like the pivotal moment of the whole story. And it's the one I completely forgot about.
Yeah.
Totally forgot that happened when I was watching this. So I was really shocked.
Yeah.
And then Paul D makes this big mistake where he says, you got 2 feet, Setha, not 4, which it's like, dude, your one job is to support her. Like, no matter what she's been through. So she's just like, fuck you. She, kicks him out of the house.
Right.
She then hears Beloved humming a song that she made up. So now, and then she sees the scar on her neck. So now she's realized who Beloved is finally. So to celebrate this, she goes to town. She wears this very pretty shawl. And she takes all their money to go and buy streamers and ribbon and treats to have a house party. She gets fired from her job. The reasons why she got fired, I found really funny.
Yeah.
Especially that the potato salad was too sweet.
Too sweet, which honestly, fireable offense.
I get it. Yeah. I know. I was like, what is she doing to it? There shouldn't be any sugar in it, period. So with one of the guys at the fabric shop, the actor's name is Paul Lazar. He's this cross-eyed actor that I know very vividly from Silence of the Lambs. And I guess he's in all of Jonathan Demme's movies. I was looking him up. Yeah. He's one of the scientists that hits on Jodie Foster in Silence of the Lambs.
So
funny. So back at home, once the parties kind of died down and there's no more sweets, Beloved pitches a fit. We start hearing these insect buzzing noises. She's clawing at her neck until it bleeds, and she rips up baby Sug's quilt, which is really upsetting. And she does it just to like spite Denver. So we're getting this like she's a child in a grown woman's body thing because she wants sugar and she's pitching a fit and just the whole house though is going to shit. Like the steps are broken and the roof has a hole in it. Like it's a mess. So Denver goes out looking for work, and when the community hears that they're struggling, they finally start to come around and care for them. So they leave them food, and they all have a meeting about what to do about this. One of the women says, well, I guess she had it coming a little.
Oof.
that cracked me up. I was like, oh, that's funny. She's hardcore. But all the women like band together and they show up and they're like chanting and screaming and crying and waving crosses and singing. And Setha brings Beloved outside and she's like naked and pregnant. Yeah. Is it supposed to be Paul D's baby? What is she? How is she pregnant?
Yeah. And she's like, they don't say how much time has passed, but she's very pregnant. She's like 6, 7, 8 months pregnant. I would say she's
right.
It's final trimester.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't think about that because it can't be that long because like Setha hasn't even been eating. Like she couldn't still be alive if it's been that long.
Right.
So Denver has been working for this white family in Cincinnati, and the man rides up, this old white guy. And since like all old white men look the same, I'm saying this as someone who will one day be an old white man. I hope I look like this. There's like a look that one of the things that I hate the most about COVID being over is like, I had to see old white men's faces again.
Yeah, seriously.
I loved when they were covered up. And then I still vividly remember the first time I saw an old white guy after like 2 years without a mask, just like mouth hanging open, like mouth breathing, just like and I was
because they usually have nice eyes and eyebrows. Old white men have amazing eyebrows usually, but
I know we talked about Scorsese's eyebrows. I know that's my goal.
Right, yeah, but usually there's something going on in the lower half.
Everything from the eyebrows down, what the fuck happened? Like I just don't understand. So this guy rides up, and I thought it was old school teacher too. So I don't know if they made the same actor. I'm not sure, but like Setha thinks it's school teacher come to get her kids again, and so she runs after him with an ice pick, and they managed to like tackle her down because it's actually old Mr. Bodwin who Denver's working for. Yeah, and then then Beloved just starts howling, and she disappears. Poof. Yeah. Literally. And just the blanket is there. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, we talked about it before this because I wanted to clarify so I didn't look stupid on the podcast, but I was like, is she just gone? Like, what did I miss? Like, I had to have missed something.
I think I rewound that part too.
Yeah.
Because I was like, did they say something? Is this?
Alakazam, anything?
Yeah. And I can't remember from the book if they just don't talk about it or what. Because we looked up some literary analysis of the ending of the book.
Yeah.
And one article I read, which I'll look up, I'll link to in our show notes because I didn't note who wrote it, but talked about with Beloved being this personification, not just of Setha's dead daughter, but of like all of the horrors of slavery kind of rolled into one person. Her disappearance could be like seen one of two ways: that they've put this behind her, like they're trying to heal and move on, or that they're just not going to talk about it, and pretend kind of it never happened. So you could see it one of two ways. And like Setha is upset by this. We flash forward, I don't know how long. Denver's in this very cute dress, and she bumps into Paul D in town, and she says that she thinks she lost her mama, not like in a literal way, but like that she's lost her mind. But she says that he should go visit her sometime. And so he goes to see her, and she's crying that she lost her quote best thing. And he told her that she's her best thing. Like
which is very sweet.
It's very sweet. This is what he should have done in the first place.
Yeah.
Like, take care of yourself.
Right.
And then we get this very bizarre speech from Baby Suggs to end the movie where she talks about you should love your heart more than your lungs or your private parts.
Yeah.
Which
okay. I'll try.
put that on a Hallmark card, I
Yeah.
guess. It's so strange.
I wish someone gave me that card when I got diagnosed with hypertension.
If only you loved your heart more than your private parts. And then the subtitles just said children singing in foreign language.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what is this? Like Whoville? It sounded like da boo da re da boo. I shouldn't say that. That's racist. But like the subtitles just said, like, you can't look it up. Like, what language is this?
Yes.
It's probably real language.
Exactly.
But the camera pans out, children are singing in a foreign language, and I guess Paul D's been helping out because the house looks cute again. They repaired the steps and everything.
I think that's a good wrap up.
Excellent. So we will take a short break and then we'll be back with our Gothic recap and we'll decide, is it Gothic? All right, ghosties, we're back with our Gothic recap. As you know, all Gothic films have 4 elements: a girl, a guy, a house, and a haunt. Our girl for Beloved, I think it's Denver. And I say this because our Gothic girl is normally drawn into something beyond her control. She's been born, and she's like the first descendant of someone who was raised in slavery. Yeah. She's the first free person. And if the movie were framed differently, it could, of course, definitely be Setha. But in this case, I think it's Denver.
Yeah, I agree. And I think Denver, I don't know that I've really consumed a piece of media that has focused on someone who that first couple of years after quote unquote slavery. I mean, there's some, overlap with the years and whatever, but this specific time period and focusing on specifically characters who Setha has, suffered at the hands of slavery, and then a child who technically she's never known slavery. She was literally born minutes after. And I think it, a lot of our Gothic girls sort of have to, it's such an annoying trope that I hate to even say it, but, sort of suffer for growth.
Yep.
These females are often put in situations where they did not cause any suffering, but they're put in that, and then through that they grow. And I think that happened a lot with Denver. I mean, literally she, we didn't really talk about it, but she was this very antisocial. Well, she wasn't antisocial. She wanted to leave the house at the beginning. She was upset with her mother for, I'm assuming she was very overprotective, didn't really want her to leave the house. Setha didn't want to move out of the house because even though it was haunted, she felt like it was their home. But you see throughout the movie, obviously she literally and figuratively grows. She, gains some confidence. She sort of goes through that heartbreak with, she thought she had a sister finally. She thought her sister was back. It's actually really heartbreaking when you think of it. I know if I was in that situation, obviously very unheard of, but you think you have a sister, especially she's been isolated for so many years, and then she loses that and her mother, really. So I agree. I think that she is a good titular girl.
Yeah, and like you said, she didn't leave the house. And I think the way the movie's framed, I didn't, it's not quite clear. I think at some point, 2 hours into the movie, Paul D says, you've never let her leave. Whereas I'm just assuming we've only seen the parts of the, the story where they're there. But so she has been very overprotected. And that's another gothic quality where the girl is trapped in a house.
Yeah.
And we do get to see her. She finally does leave. She finds a job outside the house. She really does save the family. She's the one who puts in the work to save them and move them forward by freeing herself from the house.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, that's why I think the guy is Setha in this case. We've talked before how like the guy and girl are not gendered terms, and the guy is normally the person that lures the girl into the house and keeps them trapped there. So even though there wasn't like a lure in this case, like Setha is keeping her trapped in this house.
Yeah.
She thinks it's for the best, but the results are still the same.
Right. Well, and something too that I meant to touch on when we were talking about the, awful scene about her killing her child, is that I think what makes it even more shocking is that up until that point, even though Setha is sort of keeping Denver, secluded, she has sort of these like faults, she's very much framed as like a great mother. Like she's very caring and loving towards Denver. So I think that makes her like a really interesting gothic guy, because I would, even in the case of, some of our gothic guys, they quote unquote love the girl, but it's actually like very malicious and it's like awful.
Right.
And like obviously I think she genuinely loves her daughter and cares for her and wants what's best for her. So it's very interesting.
Yeah, she's very sympathetic for sure. And it is interesting that like, especially with the movie and her being one of the first characters we meet and being played by Oprah, like you think she's going to be the main character, and she is for part of it. But once the movie reaches a certain point, she really does fade into the background and it becomes more about Denver. And Setha does kind of start deteriorating and becoming crazy in the way that the gothic guys sometimes do, obsessive over this one, in this case, beloved, this one person, and kind of giving everything to her at the expense of everything else.
Right. Yeah. She becomes almost like manic. Yeah.
Yeah. So we do have our house that we're trapped in for most of the movie. It's the house at 124 Bluestone Road. I was trying to remember again my American Lit class and talking about the symbolism of the house number. And it's something about like 124 being like, I don't know. There's Setha there, or Baby Suggs, Setha, and then like, I don't know, Beloved's number 3, and she's not there. That's why it's 124. That seems like a stretch to me, and I'm probably wrong, but that seemed like one of those like, sure, whatever you say.
Right.
If that's what you say, I'll remember that and write it down on the test, but I don't really believe it. But I love this cute little house. It's such a cute little farmhouse with a little porch. And
can I say something, and it might be insensitive?
Please.
Well, maybe not insensitive. I built this house on Sims after I watched this movie. It was so cute.
That was fast. I can't build things in The Sims. That's amazing.
Oh, I only build in The Sims. I don't play with the characters. I only build. And oh my God, because I won't go into, I could talk about Sims for hours. We'll do a whole That's So Gothic on The Sims. on the Goth family.
The Goth family.
Oh my God, we have to. But
Mortimer Goth.
I'm like building up a whole neighborhood in every single plot. Like I want to be something very different. And so this is like my affordable farmhouse option. It's so cute. I mean, you don't get, like I had to play around with the floor plan a lot. Obviously, you don't get like, some POV shot throughout the whole house, but it's just so homey and sweet. And it's, I think it's really indicative of like Setha. Like it's cozy. Kind of small. It might be like a little suffocating if you're stuck there. But it's lovely. It's
so cute.
I love after she kind of goes manic and she's tying all the fabric like to the stair railing and stuff. Like it's just, I love that. I love that so much.
Yeah, that made me realize like there's not a lot of color in the movie, because there wouldn't have been at the time. Like even her very nice clothes are still like earth tones, and so when they get these jewel toned ribbons and everything, it is really it makes it really special, because the color palette for the whole movie is very muted.
You're right. I didn't even think of that. That's probably why it like caught my attention so much and I enjoyed seeing it on screen.
Yeah, and the house deteriorates kind of with the family's
Mm,
mental state. The house kind of falls and then builds itself back up at the end.
yeah.
So this house, there was a facade, like an exterior shell, that was built in Maryland,
Hmm.
in Cecil County, Maryland, on the Fair Hill Natural Resource Management Area.
Huh.
It's this article in the Baltimore Sun writes about it and says this is a field normally where hay is grown and sold as mulch to Pennsylvania mushroom growers.
Oh.
So after Beloved wrapped, people started visiting to go to see the set.
Oh.
So they would sit on the porch and you could go into the barn because they had like blood stains on the floor from
Yeah.
when the kids were killed and everything.
Oh my
And then like
God.
you could see like, because it is a set. So
Right.
where it looks like there's vines growing up on it, you could see
Uh-huh.
them like how they were stapled to the
That's
wall,
so funny.
and stuff you don't see in the film.
Yeah.
And so the like, I don't know if it's like the economic development of this town or whatever,
Yeah.
wanted to preserve it as a
Right.
tourist attraction. But they knew that like it was supposed to be demolished, and it was demolished pretty quickly because it wouldn't have held up anyway. It
Right.
wasn't built to hold up.
Yeah. That's what I was
But
thinking.
you can find this whole file in the Maryland Inventory of Historic Properties, which is part of
Hmm.
the Maryland Historic Trust, where
Yeah.
they documented everything about this house. There's pictures of it. There is a little floor plan that you can look up if you want to
Oh.
work on your Sims house.
Yes, please.
I'll send you the PDF. And they wrote this paragraph about it, which I found really amusing, where they're supposed to
Oh.
describe its historical significance. And it says, the movie set, and movie set is capitalized, the movie set is significant for its association with the motion picture business in Hollywood, California. The famous actors Oprah Winfrey and Danny Glover have starred in the production, due for release in late 1998.
Oh.
This set is an example of how the movie business today shifts production to locales other than the movie lots of Southern California. And it shows the extent to which set designers can completely alter a landscape, one with no structures on it, to suit their needs. The set also has a certain historical significance in that the log structures are actual historic structures.
Oh.
It sounds like me trying to write a grant that's due tomorrow.
Right. Yeah.
Like I love
like,
it.
it just sounds like so like wholesome and cute.
I know,
you know?
it's so precious. So I love that like this was so important, and in a way it's true, like
Yeah.
it became this significant thing for this community in this very brief period of time.
Right.
And
Right.
I like that they were able to capture that.
Oh, good for Maryland.
I know, and it's in Maryland.
I know, right?
Why?
We're
I
just
don't
talking
know.
so much shit on Ohio, but like Maryland, we're like, oh, good
Well,
job,
they
little
could,
Maryland.
isn't it Ohio? Even they didn't want to build this there in
That's
Ohio.
true. Yeah.
And so then the interiors, though, were like on a soundstage in
Mm.
California, but all the exterior and the farm and everything was
Yeah.
in Maryland.
No.
So then, last but not least, we have our haunt, which
Mhm.
is Beloved, who, as we said, representative of all of the horrors of American slavery, which
Yeah.
we need not even we're not even
Yeah.
equipped to discuss.
No.
So,
No.
but terrible.
Yeah.
And but as you said, I liked what you said about this being one of the first things you saw that took place like right at this time.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that's also the significance of the novel as well.
Right.
And maybe give some credence to that article I mentioned earlier about Beloved disappearing because they've chosen to forget about it.
Yeah.
And the way of healing and tamping it down works, but also has this cultural impact of like us forgetting the horrors of slavery. And
Right.
so Toni Morrison through her book was able to show what it was like and how terrible it was.
Right. Right. Yeah. And I think it's even more, well, I shouldn't say more important, but it's very important to tell these stories of what happens after slavery because, it really highlights the trauma, obviously, that former
Mhm.
slaves, people who were enslaved, have to live with, and then how that literally passes. I mean, this one, it's like literally passes on to their children. Um,
Mhm.
so people who, you know, we work in the public sector. I've had a conversation with someone who's been like, why do we keep bringing it up? Just let the past be the past. I'm sure a
Yes.
lot of people have had that conversation because the past is never really the past. Like, it always lingers. And obviously, it's not going to be in this physical, literal way of your dead child comes back to haunt you. But
Wheezing at us, yeah.
yeah, right. But like, it's, if you understand that it's passing, Denver, who you could consider to be sort of the well-adjusted one at the end of this. I mean, she still has to live with this trauma and this, knowing about all of this horrible stuff that happened. So I am really shocked that I feel like there isn't a lot of media that sort of, I mean, it's probably incredibly difficult to write. So I think, again, I haven't read the book, or at least in a while. So like, obviously kudos to Toni Morrison. I'm not, not like a
Toni Morrison, good author.
whoa, hot take. I know. But like, also, I would personally say, impressive take, capturing it in a movie.
Right. And I think like unfortunately the movie's poor financial success definitely
Yes.
didn't help more stories like this getting produced, at least for film.
Yeah.
And yeah, like as you said, especially these days, even though we are like, as you said, aware of like trauma, I do think the story was really ahead of its time. Now
Yes.
because they never even use that word.
Yeah.
Whereas if this were made today, I feel like they would, and
Yeah.
make it clear that we're, these trauma-informed experiences and these childhood traumatic events. But like, especially today, that like we acknowledge trauma, but like it's not in media. So even like a
Yeah.
book, isn't going to get released because it's also not going to be financially successful. Who's going to
Right.
want to read about that? So it is unfortunate. We're kind
Yeah.
of, I don't know, if we do let these last two copies of Beloved, we have to hang on to
Yes.
them.
Oh my God. I'm going to buy a copy for our, and also, like, side note, it's even sort of more impressive that there's only 2 copies in the consortium, but because I know, like, for me, I've always been told to try to keep book adaptations on hand. This is a book adaptation.
Yeah, right.
So yikes. Yeah, I'm buying a copy for our library.
It's interesting that, yeah, this is the one that's fading away.
Yeah. And I mean, I think when you told me about this movie, or we, found it because we're kind of doing this Southern Gothic kick, I don't think I knew about it, or at least if I did, it was only very vaguely. I'm genuinely surprised this isn't a more popular movie. I mean, it's definitely not perfect, but there's some really like great unsettling parts. I mean, obviously a very powerful story. I think the acting is great. I wonder if a lot of people sort of have like, I think the big issue that we kind of already addressed is the interpretation of Beloved. I wonder if a lot of like modern audiences kind of have trouble with that. But either way, I mean, I just think it's incredible. Like, could it have been maybe like a smidge shorter? I think they were really trying to be very dedicated to the book, maybe, but still really good.
Yeah, I wonder if they'll ever try to make it into like a Netflix limited series, like something longer.
Yeah.
I feel like there's only one scene that, and I'm probably getting it totally wrong, that I remembered from the book, and I was thinking of it when you were talking about how hard it must have been for Denver to like lose her sister. I feel like there's a scene in the book near the time where it snows where they go out and they play in the snow together, or they are able to go ice skating on like a pond or something, and it's one of these very rare, like sweet moments of the book.
Right.
I feel like that's something that I had remembered.
Yeah. Although in the movie, I do know there's like the scene where Beloved like picks up a rocking chair with one arm, and then because later, what's his face, Danny Glover, I can't remember. He's like, she's not weak. She picked up a rocking chair with one arm, and Sethi's like, what are you talking about?
That reminds me of this story that I'm going to tell. I don't know if I'll cut this or not, but when I was working at a used bookstore and going to school and reading Beloved, this would have been around the time I was reading the book. The bookstore that I worked at was owned by this pair of lunatics, like a married male-female couple.
Yeah.
And the owner's wife was such a lazy bitch and would like have the staff help her with like personal tasks.
Oh, God. Yeah.
And a lot of things like, and she would like to sell her own personal items in the store, like it was some sort of personal yard sale for her.
Yeah.
And she would have the staff carry stuff in, and like carry in stuff for her to sell. And then if some people buy it, we just give it in, put it in an envelope to give to her. And it's like, you're using staff hours for your business, for your personal profit. Anyway, the reason I mention this is because there was a large rocking chair that she was trying to sell, and it was in like the middle of the floor, like blocking some of the books.
Yeah.
And I was the store manager, and I'm in the office paying bills or whatever. And I came out of the office and I said, "Did someone buy the rocking chair?" And they were like, "What?" And I was like, "The rocking chair's gone." And they were like, "Nobody purchased it." And I was like, "Where did it go?" And so I got on the security camera and I rewound the footage. And this woman who had the staff carry everything for her comes in and just picks up that rocking chair like she's fucking Beloved and just like walks it out of the store. And I printed out a screenshot of that. And I was just like, just think of this whenever she asks you to move things. Like,
oh my God, I'm obsessed. You're Donald Glover.
I know. I was just like, no.
Oh my God.
She's
don't
weak.
fall for it. Yeah.
Don't fall for her old weak lady act.
Don't
She's
fall
like
for her
Amazon
baby
woman.
in an adult body act.
Yes. Oh my God. And she would kind of be like, "Oh, can you help me with this?"
Oh God.
So yes, wow.
That's so good.
Oh, well, on that note, what do you think? Is Beloved Gothic?
Yeah, I think so.
I think so too, especially again, we're talking about Southern Gothic. I think this applies. It's so close enough to Kentucky.
Yeah.
And, it has to do with slavery.
Yes.
And so I think, and that is a heavy element with Southern Gothic, is the echoes of slavery. And it generally is from a white person's perspective. So it's refreshing to get this from the Black perspective.
Yes.
Even though it's directed by a white man, the book was written by Toni Morrison. It stars Oprah, it has the Black writer and all of that drama, but she's there. So no, I do think this is Southern. I would even I don't want to put, I feel like we've been putting the Southern Gothic as like, not our normal Gothic. I think this is just good old Gothic too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we barely even touched on a lot of the Southern Gothic elements, and I won't get into that because I don't think it really needs it. I mean, when we say Gothic, we're kind of, it's a little bit broad, obviously, the way that we talk about it. But I mean, I would say, yeah, this is Gothic. I mean, I bring it up like every episode, but if Elvis is Gothic,
Elvis is Gothic, exactly. And so often in a traditional Gothic, the haunt is symbolic or emblematic of some larger thing.
Right.
And this one definitely is.
Yeah. Well, and also this is one of the, I feel like we haven't talked about a movie where there's been a literal ghost in a while. I mean, Skeleton Key didn't technically have one.
That's
what did
true.
we talk about before? Oh gosh, what was before Skeleton Key? I don't know. I feel like we haven't talked about a literal ghost, and we again kind of barely touched on that in the beginning because it's mostly in the beginning of the story. But I mean, this one literally has supernatural elements, and
she's a poltergeist. Yeah,
she's a poltergeist. She's spooky. She's scary. This movie scared me.
Yeah, the beginning especially it kind of hangs over everything.
Yeah.
We haven't had a ghost since Phantom Thread had a ghost in it, but the internet ate that episode and no one ever listened to it.
Womp womp. We'll get to it eventually.
When we redo it. Before that, I think it's Spencer and the Anne Boleyn jump scare.
Wow. And that's barely counts.
Yeah. We were
Ugh.
ghost heavy early on when we
Yeah,
had
yeah.
Jane Eyre and Crimson Peak and House and
Oh.
Woman in Black.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow. We're back, baby. The ghost is back.
Ghosts are back. Yes. Love it. Well, thank you, Ghosties, for listening to us break down Beloved. Please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and leave us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts, please, and a review. Drop us an email at sogothicpod@gmail.com. Maybe we'll read them. And follow us on Instagram for hints about what we'll discuss next as we continue our scary road trip through the South. Stay ghosty. Bye-bye.
Bye.